Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a key piece of the information security puzzle, Clause 7 of ISO IEC 27001.2022.
That's right. Clause 7, it's titled Support.
And think of us as your guides, maybe your instructors, for this session. We're going to walk through what support actually involves for building a solid ISMS, an information security management system.
Exactly. And understanding this clause, Clause 7, it's crucial. It's like getting the foundations right before you build the house. Doesn't matter how big or small your organization is, these principles apply.
We're planning to break it down bit by bit, section by section.
Making sure the core ideas behind each requirement are clear.
Okay, so let's dive straight into the first part, Section 7.1, resources. At its core, this is really about acknowledging that you need fuel to make things run. For an ISMS, that fuel is resources.
Yeah, the standard's pretty clear. It says the organization needs to figure out what's needed and then actually provide those resources.
For what exactly?
For everything, really. Establishing the ISMS, implementing it, keeping it running day to day, and that all-important continual improvement.
So what kind of resources are we talking about? It's not just money, is it?
No, definitely not just money, although that's part of it, obviously. Budget's important. But it's also people having enough staff with the right skills.
Yeah, right.
It's the tools, the technology, the software, the hardware, and the basic infrastructure to support it all.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you give us an example, maybe?
Sure. Let's say an organization decides they need better endpoint security, maybe some new anti-malware software across the board.
Okay.
Section 7.1 means they don't just decide it. They have to actually allocate the budget to buy the software.
Right, the financial resource.
Exactly. But also, critically, they need the people resource.
Yeah.
Who's going to roll it out? Who manages it? Who updates it? Who maybe trains the users on any changes?
So you need both the tech and the people qualified to handle it.
You got it. You can't just buy the tool and hope for the best. Security needs real investment in tech and people. If you skimp on either, well, the whole ISMS gets weaker.
And it's not just a one-time thing. You mentioned continual improvement.
Absolutely. That's key. Resource planning has to be dynamic. Threats change, your business changes.
So your resource allocation needs to keep up.
Precisely. Maybe you need more training budget next year, or maybe you need to upgrade a specific security tool, or even hire someone with a very specialized skill set. It's ongoing.
Okay, that clarifies resources. Let's move on to the next section then, 7.2, competence.
Right. So we've got the resources. Now we need to make sure the people using them or involved in security work actually know what they're doing.
This is about skills and knowledge then.
Exactly. It's about ensuring anyone whose work affects your information security performance is competent.
And how does the standard say you should do that? It seems like a big ask.
It breaks it down logically. First step, determine the necessary competence. What skills does someone in this specific role actually need?
So define the requirements for each job that touches security.
Could be basic awareness, like spotting phishing, or it could be highly technical, like configuring a firewall correctly.
Okay, you've defined what's needed. Then what?
Then you need to ensure people have that competence. The standard suggests ways like formal education, specific training courses, or just proven on-the-job experience.
So different paths to proving competence.
Yes.
Yeah.
And importantly, if there's a gap, if someone doesn't have the necessary competence, you have to take action.
Action like what? Firing them.
Not necessarily. It could mean providing targeted training, or maybe mentoring, pairing them with someone more experienced.
Or maybe recruiting someone new if the skill just isn't there internally.
Exactly. It's about actively building or acquiring the competence your ISMS needs.
But just sending someone on a course isn't the end of it.
Good point. No, you also have to evaluate the effectiveness of those actions. Did the training actually stick? Did the mentoring work?
How would you even measure that?
Could be through tests, observation on the job, maybe simulations. The goal is to see if the competence level actually improved and meets the need. It's not just box ticking.
Makes sense. And there's a documentation aspect too, I bet.
Always. You need to retain appropriate documented information as evidence of competence.
So keeping records, training certificates, maybe performance reviews that mention specific skills, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Proof that the people in security-related roles are capable.
So back to that firewall admin example. You hire them, make sure they've got, say, the vendor certification for your firewall.
And you keep a copy of that certificate on file.
Got it.
Really?
Competence covered. What's next? 7.3.
7.3 is awareness. This is critical. You have the best tools, the most competent people.
But if they aren't aware of the basics or their role,
Then you've still got significant risk. Awareness is about making sure everyone involved understands the fundamentals. Employees, contractors, whoever works under the organization's control.
Everyone. Okay. What specifically do they need to be aware of?
The standard calls out 3 key things. First, the information security policy.
Just that it exists.
That it exists, yeah.
Yeah.
And generally what it aims to achieve. What are the basic rules of the road for security in this organization?
Okay, number 1. The policy. What's second?
Second, their own contribution to the effectiveness of the ISMS. And this includes understanding the benefits of actually improving security performance.
So making it relevant to them. How does my following this password rule help?
Exactly. Connecting their actions to the bigger picture. If people get the why, they're much more likely to comply. It makes security less of an abstract burden.
Right. And the third area of awareness.
The implications of not conforming with the ISMS requirements.
The consequences.
Pretty much. What could happen if they don't follow the rules? Could be damage to the company, data breaches, fines.
Or even disciplinary action for them personally.
Potentially, yes. It's about understanding that non-compliance isn't consequence-free.
So if we take an example like handling sensitive customer data, people need to be aware of the policy for classifying and protecting it. That's point 1. They need to understand how locking their screen helps prevent unauthorized access. Point 2, their contribution.
And they need to know that leaving sensitive data unsecured could lead to a major breach, fines, reputational damage. The implications. Point 3.
Got it. Policy, contribution, consequences. That's awareness.
Nicely summarized. Shall we move to 7.4?
Let's do it. 7.4 is communication.
Yeah, because an ISMS doesn't operate in silence. You need to talk about security stuff, both internally and sometimes externally too.
So this section helps you figure out how to manage that communication.
Essentially, yes. It asks you to determine the needs for communication relevant to the ISMS. And it gives you 4 things to think about for any communication you plan.
Okay, what are the 4 things?
First, what needs to be communicated? Policy updates, new threats, incident details, performance results.
Second,
when to communicate. Is it routine, like a monthly newsletter? Or is it triggered by an event, like a security breach?
Third must be.
With whom to communicate? Who's the audience? All staff? Just the IT team? Senior management? Customers? Regulators?
Tailoring the message to the audience.
Exactly. And finally, how to communicate. Email, intranet, meetings, training sessions, formal press release.
The channel matters.
Definitely. You need the right method to reach the right people effectively.
Can you give an example? Maybe one internal, one external?
Sure. Internally, let's say you update the password policy. You need to decide what to communicate, the changes, the reasons, when, maybe before it takes effect, with whom, all employees, and how. Email, intranet news, maybe a reminder in team meetings.
Okay. And external?
Externally, if you unfortunately have a data breach involving customer data, you need a plan for what to tell affected customers, facts, steps taken, when, as required by law or regulation promptly, with whom, affected customers, regulators, and how. Secure notification letters, dedicated web page, maybe a call center.
Having that planned out before it happens seems crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Trying to figure that out during a crisis is not ideal.
Yeah, understood. Okay, that brings us to the last major section in Clause 7, which is 7.5, documented information. This sounds important.
It is. This is where the ISMS becomes, tangible. It's the policies, procedures, records the evidence that your ISMS exists and operates.
Right. And 7.5 is split into parts. Let's start with 7.5.1, General.
Okay. This part basically says your ISMS must include documented information, and it specifies 2 types.
2 types.
First, any documented information explicitly required by the ISO 27001 standard itself. Throughout the standard, it'll say things like, the organization shall retain documented information on. Those are mandatory.
Okay, the stuff the standard makes you document. What's the second type?
The second type is any other documented information that the organization itself decides is necessary for the ISMS to be effective.
So there's flexibility there.
Yes. You document what the standard demands, plus whatever else you need to run your specific security processes effectively and consistently. Could be procedures, work instructions, checklists, whatever helps you.
And does everyone need the same amount of documentation?
No, definitely not. The standard acknowledges that the extent of documented information can vary a lot. Depends on the organization's size, how complex its operations are, even how competent its people are.
So a small startup might have less formal docs than a huge bank.
Exactly. It needs to be appropriate for the context.
Okay, that's the what. Now, 7.5.2 is about creating and updating these documents.
Right. If you're going to have documented information, it needs to be created and updated properly. It needs to be fit for purpose.
What does that involve?
The standard highlights 3 things to get right. First, identification and description.
Like giving it a name and number.
Pretty much. A clear title, maybe a date, author, a reference number, version control, so you know exactly what document you're looking at and if it's the current one.
Makes sense for organization. What's second?
Format and media. How is it presented?
Language.
Is it a Word doc, a PDF, part of a software tool? Does it use graphics? Is it on paper or electronic?
Basically making it usable and accessible for the people who need it.
You got it. And the third, very important, review and approval. Meaning before a document becomes official ISMS stuff, someone appropriate needs to check it. Is it accurate? Is it adequate? Does it make sense?
And then someone with authority has to formally sign off on it.
Exactly. That formal approval step signifies it's suitable and ready to be used.
Okay, create, identify, format, review, approve. That covers creating and updating. What about managing them ongoing? That sounds like 7.5.3.
That's exactly what 7.5.3 control of documented information is about.
Yeah.
Having great documents isn't enough if you can't manage them properly.
Control means what exactly? Keeping them safe.
That's a big part of it, yes. The 2 main goals are ensuring the documents are available and suitable for use when and where they're needed.
So people can actually find and use the right procedure at the right time.
Right. And second, ensuring they're adequately protected.
Protected from what?
Loss of confidentiality, unauthorized people seeing them. Improper use people using outdated versions, for instance, or loss of integrity, unauthorized changes, or corruption.
Okay, availability and protection. How do you achieve that control?
The standard lists several activities to consider. Things like controlling distribution, access, retrieval, and use. Who gets to see what? How do they get it?
Access control for documents.
Also, storage and preservation, keeping them safe, readable, maybe backing them up if electronic.
What about changes?
Crucial. Control of changes, usually version control, so everyone knows what the current approved version is.
And getting rid of old stuff.
Yep. Retention and disposition. How long do you keep records? How do you securely dispose of them when they're no longer needed? Think legal or regulatory requirements here too.
That sounds comprehensive. Anything else under control?
It specifically mentions identifying and controlling relevant documented information from external sources too.
Like what?
Maybe laws, regulations, contractual requirements from partners, standards. If it's necessary for your ISMS, you need to control it just like your internal docs.
Okay. And there was a note about access.
Yes, good point. The note clarifies that access isn't just one thing. It can mean permission just to view a document, or it could mean permission to view and change it. Organizations need to be clear about who has what level of access.
Right. Different permissions for different roles. Makes sense.
So that wraps up 7.5 and really all of Clause 7.
Okay, so let's quickly recap. Clause 7, support, is really the engine room for the ISMS, isn't it?
I like that analogy. It covers the essential elements needed to make everything else work.
We talked about 7.1, resources, having the people, tech, budget.
7.2, competence, ensuring people have the right skills and knowledge.
7.3, awareness, making sure everyone understands the security policy, their role, and the consequences.
7.4, communication planning, how, when, what, and with whom to communicate about security.
And finally, 7.5, documented information, creating, updating, and controlling the necessary policies, procedures, and records.
These support functions, they really are the foundation. Get these wrong, and the rest of your ISMS structure is built on shaky ground.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, as you look at your own organization or study the standard further, really think about how these support elements are functioning.
Are the resources truly adequate? Is competence actively managed? Is awareness more than just an annual tick box exercise? Is communication effective? Are the documents under control?
Yeah, really reflect on that in your context. And that brings us to a final thought to leave you with.
Ooh, okay.
Given how interconnected all these parts of Clause 7 are, resources, competence, awareness, communication, documentation, if one of them were to break down significantly, which single breakdown do you think would cause the most damage to an organization's overall information security?
It's a tough one. They're also linked. A failure in one tends to impact the others.
Something to ponder, perhaps? It really highlights how vital each piece of this support structure truly is.